All right, everybody, this is In Liberty and Health, episode 45, I think. If I'm wrong, then someone can tell me. If I'm not, then, we're good to go. I got Reed Coverdale and Shane Chesher, both returning to the podcast. This is Reed's third time. He might consider doing residency here and we'll work on Shane. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. Hopefully, we don't get this one removed, but we're not going to be talking about, Podesta and Epstein and, the
Pizzagate?
mega group and everything. So we'll be a little bit safer.
Yeah, hopefully. We're criticizing Biden, which, a lot of people seem to do, but I think we'll be fine. Shane, what's up, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We're 1 year into this regime, so we survived a year so far. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're still upright and breathing. So I'm going to do a little share screen here. We're going to roll through his little press conference that he did before he took questions. And I didn't get to watch all the questions, but it was pretty entertaining from what I did see. So let me make sure I got this all right here. I hate Zoom because they make you enable sound. I think that is the dumbest.
Wait, why do you have a Pornhub tab open? No, I'm just kidding.
That's where I watch my midget porn. I don't.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, yeah, the date that we're recording this is January 20th. I'll be putting this out tomorrow around 3 p.m. So it'll be January 21st. And, today marks 1 year of Joe Biden being the overlord in our unfortunate lives. So, without further ado,
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Tomorrow will mark 1 year since I took office. It's been a year of challenges, but it's also been a year of enormous progress. We went from 2 million people being vaccinated at the moment I was sworn in to 210 million Americans being fully vaccinated today. We created 6 million new jobs, more jobs in 1 year than any time before.
you guys can just tell me when to pause it whenever.
I just wanted to say 6 million sounds a little high. I'm not so sure about that number. So, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, once again, when you lock everybody in their homes for, a year at a time, and then all of a sudden tell people they can start going out and about, then,
Yeah, that was a Holocaust joke, but it's all right. So,
All right, now we're getting pulled.
yeah, now you're getting taken off. So,
Unemployment dropped, the unemployment rate dropped to 3.9%. Child poverty dropped by nearly 40%, the biggest.
One thing that's kind of bullshit here, and anybody who knows anything about the unemployment rate, it's funny to hear presidents talk about this because, Biden does it now, Trump did it. The unemployment rate is such a bullshit thing to spew out because they
yeah.
never ever mention the about 35% disparity from labor force participation rate to the unemployment rate. So I actually have something pulled up here to kind of display that. You can see off of ceicdata.com here. You can see the labor force participation rate, and it's pretty rigid. But as you can see, we're right here at about, I think it's 61.9% currently, but unemployment's only 3.7%. Where's the other 35%?
that's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, that's always been a complete bullshit number. When Obama referenced it, when Trump referenced it, and especially now when when he's mentioning it, it's hilarious because like we've created, what did you say, 6 million jobs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, yeah, yeah, everyone was unemployed, everyone was locked down in their houses, and then they went back to work. That's really what happened. You didn't create 6 million jobs. That would be like saying, I mean, well, I guess you could say, although you can't blame it on Trump. Like I was going to say, you could say Trump destroyed millions of jobs, but it wasn't really, he didn't do much to stop it, but it wasn't really him doing it. It was mostly state governments and everything. But to say that you created 6 million jobs when people just went back to work is laughable. I mean, it's hilarious.
Right.
This guy eliminated jobs on his first day in office, like with the
Mhm.
stroke of a pen. Like, I mean, this guy did damage from the get-go. So he wasn't helping us at all in any facet. So it's crazy to hear. This whole thing was crazy to hear how he tried to make him say. I think it made him look worse. So
Right. I wish I would have kept up some of the tabs, but killing that Keystone pipeline, Canada was actually pretty pissed off about that. I was watching a video before when I was in the gym about that's how Canada actually gets a lot of their oil, and I believe that they actually have some rights to that, and there was no communication between them. It was just gone. And it actually is the safest way to transport oil, which is something that you never heard anybody talk about. To transport oil through pipelines is actually a lot safer than by vehicle, by boat, or by air, if they even do that. Because if it leaks, well, it's a lot less likely to leak. And on top of that, there's so many technologies out now, and this also applies to fracking, that you can repair these leaks. And typically what they use is like some kind of fluid to make all the oil and everything to go to the top of the water, so that way they can kind of clean up the mess rather than it just going down to the drinking water. You guys got anything else to add before we resume? We're only 36 seconds in.
Now you might as well get after it.
American history. New business applications grew by 30%, the biggest increase ever. And for the first time in a long time, this country.
So, well, once again, to interrupt them again, the American business application, as you could see here, I pulled it up on census.gov. So their own data, you could see all this stuff is plummeting. Business applications, negatives, all across the board. Yeah, you see it kind of spike up here, but right here at the bottom, they adjusted it to decrease it. just putting that out there. So, and as we know, when they talk about trade deficit numbers, unemployment numbers, jobs numbers, they always get substantially corrected downwards. There's never a correction upwards. It's always a substantial correction downwards.
Yeah. Country's working people actually got a raise. People, the bottom 40% saw their income go up the most of all those that got a raise. We cut health insurance premiums for millions of American families.
I've got something to say about the raise.
I'm sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were even advertising this ahead of time. They were saying, I forget when, it was right before we did a Four Horsemen episode, and I think in like the summer. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, oh, the silver lining to inflation is higher wages.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible that type of gaslighting is just so insane. Yeah, I mean, when the dollar is worth less and you get paid more of them, you do get a raise technically.
Right. Yeah. I think he talks about, well, yeah, he does talk about it a little bit more later on in the video. He talks about Fed Chair Powell, who's the greatest Federal Reserve chairman in the world. Shane, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, this raise is a hoax. I mean, first of all, it's because they can't get people to work, so they're paying people at McDonald's and stuff more because they're just trying to get you in the door because they can't get people to leave their home anymore. And then the other part of it is what Reed said is it's not a real raise. I mean, the dollar is just crumbling as we speak, and we're losing in so many ways. And some people didn't get the raise that he's talking about, so they're really losing.
Yeah, and I like to typically phrase this as stolen purchasing power because it's essentially what it is. I did a video when I first started my YouTube channel about how I think it was Dunkin' Donuts was paying $22 an hour over on McNightmare Road. I think it was in what would that be? Over in Etna. Yeah. But literally, Dunkin' Donuts paying $22 an hour. You can't get people to fucking go to work anymore because it's become so, you get paid so well to just stay at home and do nothing.
That's what's funny about the unemployment numbers. It's like if it was really whatever he said, 3.5% or whatever, you wouldn't have Wendy's offering $22 an hour to make hamburgers and only having 3 employees in the kitchen. Like, get real.
Right.
Prize medical bills illegal in this country. You know those bills you get that you don't expect if they're $2,000 to $5,000 from the hospital beyond what you thought you were going to have to owe because of the consultation you weren't told was going to cost that much? No more. They're now illegal. Thanks to the American Rescue Plan and other actions we've taken, we've seen record job creation, record economic growth in the past year. Now,
So the one thing that's kind of funny about this is that this was a disaster from his, previous administration, the Obama Biden administration. When you mandate that everybody has to have health care, and now essentially you've completely socialized the system. Now people, instead of making appointments and, going in through, regular system, now they just go straight to the emergency room anytime anything happens. This is a disaster that they caused, and now they're trying to band-aid over. We could breeze through the American Rescue Plan if you guys want. I got it pulled up. Do you guys got anything to add before we kind of just dust through that real quick?
I mean, the Obamacare plan was a disaster. It hurt more people, the working class people, than it helped working people. So, I mean, Biden care is not going to be any better. I mean, they don't mean any well for us at all. They're looking for socialism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here, the American Rescue Plan will change the course of the pandemic and deliver immediate relief for American workers. The plan will build a bridge to an equitable economic recovery and immediately reduce child poverty. In fact, a Columbia University study found that passing the plan will lift more than 5 million children out of poverty this year, cutting the poverty rate by 50%. Yeah, I'm sure. The bill is one of the most progressive pieces of legislation in history, with more than 2/3 of its tax cuts and direct payments going to families making less than 90 grand per year. What they're not telling you is that a lot of the money that they're going to, put behind this bill and use to pay for it is all going to come from the Federal Reserve. Right? I literally had somebody on Twitter tell me that, oh, the Federal Reserve, or this wasn't inflationary because the government made the loans. It was something to that degree. I'm like, are you serious? You're really telling me that we have this independent Federal Reserve and it's not inflationary? Come on, guys, get real.
I don't even understand what they're trying to, like, how does that make any sense?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's funny because they're talking about delivering relief and all this, but later on he talks a little bit about inflation. And what nobody will ever talk about is how inflation is not only the most regressive tax, but it's also disproportionately affects people on fixed incomes and people on the lower economic income rung because they don't have assets to be inflated. So their purchasing power gets completely wiped out from their hands.
This whole thing's just a joke. It really is.
Yeah, and as you can see, they're talking about giving out more stimulus checks and extend current unemployment insurance benefits and eligibility to September 6th. So this was a while back, but 11 million Americans from losing benefits in about a week, provide $300 per week for supplement. It's incredibly inflationary, and to think
I guarantee you will not see anything end in September because elections are in November. Like, they're not going to kick millions of people off of unemployment until, I mean, at least until they get reelected.
Right. Yeah.
Unless they're idiots. But.
So I actually kind of did a whole podcast on this, but the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, that actually has very detrimental effects to society as a whole. And I won't completely touch it here. I believe it was obesity and welfare. I can't remember exactly what episode it was, probably around 39 or 40. But these programs actually tend to make people more obese, and there is a pretty strong correlation between obesity and ending up on welfare, because as you get more and more unhealthy, you can no longer take care of yourself. So who are you going to go to? You're going to go to the state to take care of you. So I'll link this in the show notes. We won't beat up on that too bad. We'll continue to let our beloved president fall apart as we watch him. Anything before we move on?
Thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we're about to make a record investment in rebuilding America to take us to be the #1 best infrastructure in the world. Well, now we're way below that. We'll be creating better jobs for millions of people, modernizing our roads, our bridges, our highways, our ports, our airports, everything from making clean water, removing lead pipes, that every American can turn on a faucet and drink clean water, urban and rural and suburban communities. It's going to make affordable high-speed internet available to every American in urban, rural, and suburban areas. We've never done that before.
Hold on. Remember when he said African Americans don't know how to use the internet. And he said Kamala Harris said something about like the Kinkos or something like that. They didn't have they didn't know how to use the technology. It's just crazy. This guy, the high speed internet, like I don't know. He just walking, talking hypocrite. It's
Yeah. Reed?
Yeah, no, I agree.
How we are. We're in the process of getting that done. Still, for all this progress, I know there's a lot of frustration and fatigue in this country. And we know why. COVID-19. Omicron has now been challenging us.
So, I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Like, I mean, by the way, like my boss got COVID and he got severely fucked up by it. He was in the hospital for like 3 weeks. He had a collapsed lung. So I get it. Like, it's not like it's just a joke and it can't fuck you up. I completely understand that it can. But like you look at the statistics, your likelihood, if you're a young, healthy person, of being hospitalized without being vaccinated is less than 1%. And if you're older, it's still not that high. Like I think like even if you're like older, it's still like under 5% if you're not vaccinated. It doesn't get high until you have diabetes and asthma and you're, 75, 80 years old. I mean, we've just been gaslit into oblivion throughout this whole thing. And Omicron is the least harmful variant, and it can still mess you up. But like, I mean, it's getting more mild and more contagious. So the idea that, oh, now we have the Omicron variant and we're in more trouble is just, I mean, it's so backwards and wrong.
Yeah, and I've really beaten the drums on this, but they never told people to improve your metabolic or physical health. They told you stay inside, wear your mask, wait for your booster, get triple vaccinated, be scared of the air. I kind of wanted to tap on this infrastructure plan, but I won't beat up on this too much, at least not right now. But Peter Schiff talks about this a lot, but he's absolutely right, is that government jobs aren't a net benefit to the economy, right? Because they take money away from the taxpayers. You have to steal money from productive people who are contributing in, our free market, quote unquote, and pay people from the government. And those people who are paying from the government have to take a chunk of that change, which is probably more handsome than the people who are doing the work. And it doesn't make the US any better off until those projects are done, which could take years. And even when they're done, they're still probably not even that greatly done because we know anything the government does, they do a terrible job at.
Yep.
All right, we'll keep rolling.
In a way that it's the new enemy. But while it's cause for concern, it's not cause for panic. We've been doing everything we can, learning and adapting as fast as we can, and preparing for a future beyond the pandemic. All I know that after almost 2 years of physical, emotional, and psychological weight of this pandemic and the impact it's had on everyone, for many of us, it's been too much to bear. We're in a very different place now, though. We have the tools, vaccines, boosters, masks, tests.
Okay, I want to stop it here. We're going to dust over some of the Israeli data, which is not as promising as the regime would have you believe.
What?
So, go ahead.
Why did he said vaccines, boosters, like those are the same thing, first of all, and like treatment never gets brought up. Natural immunity never gets brought up. Like they're like they're so obvious. It's like, how don't you see it? Like it's mind-boggling.
The other thing is, well, I'm sure we're about to go over this, but the Omicron variant is pretty impervious to vaccines. It doesn't really make much of a difference. So the idea that, I mean, also, if these are working, why are we back in masks and social distancing again and everything? Like, why are we starting to play this charade again?
Record cases
so far ahead. Yeah.
Right. Well, and what they won't tell you is that these record cases are also not severe cases. So I literally just Googled this, right? Israel vaccination rate. So you can see right here, 17.7 million doses of the vaccine have been given, and 65.6% of their population is vaccinated. Right. Bam. Israel, world #1 in daily COVID cases per capita. This was, January 20th.
Yep.
Also, there I don't know if you heard Dr. Malone, Robert Malone talk about it.
Yeah.
They have one of the highest in their region, one of the highest actually like hospitalization and cases by death.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like the more you're vaccinating, and this is the WHO's actually even warning about this, and nobody should trust the WHO, but they're saying like as you continue to vaccinate, it's weakening your immune system. So
Mhm. Yeah, and I'll just throw this study up here real quick. Basically, they're just saying these findings indicate that immunity against the Delta variant of SARS-CoV-2 waned in all age groups a few months after receipt of the second dose of the vaccine. Um, just they're saying they have the tools, but I don't know if you got like Pittsburgh tools. You went to Harbor Freight to find your tools or what, but I can tell you right now, it doesn't seem like they're working.
Nope.
Best pills to save lives and keep businesses and schools open. 75% of adults are fully vaccinated. We've gone from 90 million adults with no shots in arms last summer and down to 35 million with no shots as of today. And we're adding about 9 million more vaccinations each week. We're going to stick with our vaccination efforts because vaccinations work. So get vaccinated, please.
Just saying. we just went through it. Vaccines work. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but doesn't look good.
I was also doing some reading a few weeks ago. I mean, I have heard what you were saying about the vaccines weakening your immune system, but also like the more shots, a side effect of that is the more shots that you've had, the less your next booster is going to do to protect you from COVID. So if you've already had 3 shots and you're getting another booster, it's like firing a blank. Whereas, I mean, if you're getting your first and only shot right now, I've heard it can actually do more against COVID because it's your first shot. But yeah, if you've had 3 and you're going to get another one, like you're basically just firing a blank at this point, especially against the Omicron variant, because it's pretty impervious to vaccines anyways.
So I follow Dr. John Campbell, and I believe he said that surprisingly, Omicron was actually evading natural immunity. But from what I've heard from Jay Bhattacharya, who's a doctor from Oxford or Stanford, I can't remember what it is, but he was one of the drafters of the Great Barrington Declaration. He said that reinfection rate amongst people who have natural immunity is about 0.3 to 1%. So, and when those people do get reinfected, it's incredibly mild. So, once again, why aren't we talking about natural immunity? I'm not of the camp that says vaccines are useless, but as more and more data comes out, it just does not look like it's living up to the hype. I mean, that's like the biggest con that we've been sold over the last 2 years, in my opinion. And I put up
It
the
seems
ones.
like very early on, like almost a year ago right now, like if you got a vaccine, it seems like from the data that it lowered the effects of the original COVID variant with the original vaccine. But at this point, they are doing less, like especially if you're boosted up and everything.
Right.
we never got the real statistics. I mean, this is we forget that we're in the middle of an experiment. Like nobody really knew how this was going to work out. And a year without a vaccine, we had less deaths. A year with the vaccine, we had more deaths. And now we're setting record cases, millions of cases. I mean, it's insane to say it's working and what we're doing is working, and you're not allowed to question it, or you're censored, or you're deleted. Like it's blatantly obvious that there's something more going on here. And then they're selling you the vaccine. They're pushing the vaccine. It's all vax, and not treatments. Like that's the best way to treat any virus is with actual treatments. So there's just way too many red flags, and the push of what they're doing is just. I mean, it's just not working the way they say it is. So
Right. And like I said, we got hugely conned. And it's unfortunate they're pushing this on people younger than, like 30, because I did put up a study that was sent to me from somebody I follow. And your chances of Let me make sure I lay this out correctly. So there were about 9 million cases of COVID in people from the ages of 18 to 29, right? Now, less than 4,500 of those 9 million cases died. So that's about, I think it was a half of 1% of all COVID-19 cases that were recorded in ages 18 to 29 died, right? Less than half a percent. So their risk of getting myocarditis from the vaccine is 1 in about 32,250, I want to say, which is incredibly small. I'm not one of those dudes who's going to freak out and say that as soon as you look at that needle, you're going to get a heart attack. But if your chance of dying from COVID is a half of 1%, and your chance of getting myocarditis from the vaccine is 1 in 32,000, which is still probably pretty low, you don't know that you're going to get exposed to COVID, right? If you get the vaccine, then there's no going back at that point. If you ask me, you're probably better off taking the risk with COVID. Not a doctor, just telling you the way I see it from the data that I've read. I believe it was Noam Barda et al. If you look that up, I'll see if I can find it.
That's why I didn't get vaccinated. I did a live stream on this a few months ago because the likelihood of me dying from COVID was not extremely, it wasn't that much higher than the likelihood of getting, one of the side effects, one of which is myocarditis from getting the vaccine. So it's like, why would I bother? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yes. So 86% of the cases of myocarditis end up with hospitalization, right? 86%. And it's funny if they say mild myocarditis. What is mild heart inflammation? Like, what are you talking about? So, do you guys got anything else to add, or do you want to keep rolling?
I didn't even hear of myocarditis until this vaccine, to be honest with you.
No, honestly, neither did I.
And get your booster. Look, we're also increasing testing. Should we have done more testing earlier? Yes, but we're doing more now. We've gone from 0 at-home tests a year ago to 375 million tests on the market in just this month. If you buy a test at a store, your insurance will reimburse you. On top of that, we're making 1 billion at-home tests available for you to order and be delivered to your home for free.
Okay, I had to stop this right here because I looked this up. So he said the government is making 1 billion tests available, right? You guys got that. So 1 billion tests ordered. The cheapest one I could find, just doing a simple Google search, was $7.99, right? So if you multiply that $7.99 by 1 billion, then the government spent $7,990,000,000 on COVID tests. Now, if you went more expensive with the most expensive one that I could find for an individual test at $28 a pop, they spent $28 billion on tests.
And I don't think they even trust these at-home tests. Like, they say if you get an at-home test, like, don't trust that one. I mean, the PCR test is actually hogwash anyways.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just to judge off cases too. Like, I think we touched on it, but like, we can't, I mean, actually Fauci actually had to talk about it at a point in time. But like, cases don't mean anything. I mean, it's the hospitalization numbers, and then those don't even mean anything if you're telling the real story. Are they in the hospital with COVID or because of COVID?
Well, yeah, it's funny that the regime's kind of coming out and saying what everybody was saying 2 years ago. Well, did they, are they hospitalized because of COVID, or are they hospitalized with COVID? Well, now if you look at the data, now there's a lot of people who are entering the hospital and then testing positive for COVID, right? It's like they're saying the quiet part out loud, essentially.
Yeah.
Just visit covidtest.gov to know how to get that free test kit to your home. In addition, there are 20,000 sites where you can get tested in person for free now. And now we have more treatments that people can, for people to keep people out of the hospital than any other point in the pandemic, including life-saving antiviral pills. We purchased 20 million of these new Pfizer pills.
Okay, so to touch on this real quick, I looked into it, and you know who did the study for Pfizer's pills to show the efficacy? Pfizer.
Of course.
Pfizer did the study to verify that the Pfizer pills were effective. That's just putting that out there. So I wasn't able to find too much other data on it. They did say, I think it was ranging from like 50 to 90% effective. I really don't know that much about it. Maybe that's true, but once again, you got the fox guarding the hen house. Where you literally have them doing their own study to prove the efficacy of their own pill. And, I think everybody knows that a majority of Congress and the Senate hold stock in Pfizer. So, of course, they're going to say, oh, well, we bought all these pills from Pfizer. Well, guess what? Their stock went up too. Dude, it's a self-licking ice cream cone. That's the best way to put it.
We have cheap, proven safe, like Nobel Prize winning treatments, that they like to call horse dewormer, that were proven to work in multiple studies and worked in India. And that's another telltale sign of they're not telling the truth. And then we have the antibodies that he was blocking if you weren't a certain skin color. And that's another, what the heck's going on? He should have made it more available, but he was making it less available. So it's honestly, it's crazy. It's criminal.
Reed?
Yeah, no, when it's sort of like when you have the government inspecting itself for corruption or whatever. When you have a company testing its own efficacy, of course it's going to be off. I don't know. It seems kind of self-explanatory to anyone with a brain.
Yeah, wow. Think about who we're dealing with.
More than any country in the world. The bottom line on COVID-19 is that we're in a better place than we've been and have been thus far, clearly better than a year ago. We're not going back to lockdowns. We're not going back to closing schools. Schools should stay open because the American Rescue Plan, we provided to states $130 billion, $130 billion to keep our students and educators safe and schools open. Funding for ventilation systems in schools, social distancing, hygiene for classrooms and the school buses. In addition, we've added another $10 billion for COVID-19 tests to be able to be administered at schools. And many states and school districts have spent this money very well. Unfortunately, some haven't.
So my question here is, what are you going to do? Are you going to test every single child every single time they come in if they got a sniffle? What is the human capital cost that we're dealing with here? Because are you going to have, are you literally going to pay somebody to sit there and shove Q-tips up little kids' noses? And tell me how many days they're going to put up with that. At some point, I'm pretty sure he said at one point, we have to live with it. We have to live with COVID. This is not going away. And children are not the main vector of how this disease spreads. All right. Lockdowns honestly probably cause more spread than anything else, because instead of people going out and about and not being closed indoors and, putting all of the air, filling up the air with COVID-19 particles, as crude as that is to say, in close proximity to people, when you lock people in their houses, now everybody gets COVID within the house. What the fuck's the point here? And once again, it's inflationary, because where are you getting this money? He says it later on, but nobody's taxes are going to be raised. So where is this money coming from? It's coming from the money printer.
Encourage the states and school districts that use the funding to protect our children and keep our schools open. Use it. The COVID-19 is not going to give up and accept things. It's just not going to go away immediately. But I'm not going to give up and accept things as they are now. Some people may call what's happening now the new normal. I call it a job not yet finished. It will get better. We're moving toward a time when COVID-19 won't disrupt our daily lives, where COVID-19 won't be a crisis, but something to protect against and a threat. Look, we're not there yet, but we will get there. Now, the second challenge we're facing are prices.
So before we kind of move on to this rabbit hole, because this is going to be a really good one, what is the objective measurement when we're out of the pandemic, right? Is it cases? Is it hospitalizations? Is it vaccination? Is it natural immunity? well, we know it's not that one, but what is the objective standard that we're going to say that we no longer need any more COVID measures?
Once the biosecurity state has been established and the oligarchs are happy.
Bingo.
I mean, it doesn't stop until we stop it, to be honest. I mean, as long as we participate in this parade, this charade, this madness, they're going to keep on pressing forward. Dictators, authoritarians, totalitarians, they don't like to give up power, and they're not going to. And there is a bigger scheme at play here, and Reed hit it on the head. They want a social credit score. They want a vaccine passport system. They want total control of life.
COVID-19 has created a lot of economic complications, including.
Let me correct that real quick. It was never COVID-19 that caused the problems. It was a government reaction to COVID-19, right? You could argue
COVID-19 was a reaction to government too, most likely.
Yeah, most likely. It's 2 years ago, you would have got thrown off and called a conspiracy theorist, but now they say it out in the open. What the hell, man? Or, come on, man.
Rapid price increases across the world economy. People see it at the gas pumps, the grocery stores, and elsewhere. So here's what we're going to do. A critical job in making sure that the elevated prices don't become entrenched rests with the Federal Reserve, which has a dual mandate: full employment and stable prices.
We have neither. We have neither. We hit on this a little bit earlier. We have neither. The Federal Reserve has been the sole instrument in stealing our purchasing power for the last over 100 years. They are not good at the job they're assigned. And how can you think, I don't know where people get this idea that someone in charge of a bank, a money printer, can somehow manipulate the economy to increase employment. I don't know how you can square that circle, but to me, it's not possible because the economy is so delicate, or I don't even want to say delicate, but complicated. And there's so many nuances and there's so much stuff that bureaucrats and even we don't understand. And certainly the chairman of the Federal Reserve doesn't understand. They've had low interest rates for the last 20 years because we had to go fight a war. So we had to put down, interest rates super low. And then when bubbles start coming up, we lower them again and we just keep pushing them down and down and down. But I don't want to hit on that too much. We'll let him talk for a little bit. And once again, if you guys got any points to bring up, just let me know.
The Federal Reserve provided extraordinary support during the crisis for the previous year and a half. Given the strength of our economy and the pace of recent price increases, it's appropriate, as the federal chairman, Chairman Powell, the Fed Chairman Powell has indicated, to recalibrate the support that is now necessary. I respect the Fed's independence, and I've nominated 5 superb individuals to serve on the Federal Board of Governors, men and women from a variety of ideological perspectives. They're eminently qualified, historically diverse, and have earned bipartisan praise. And I call on the United States Senate to confirm them without any further.
I guarantee that these are not bipartisan people at all.
No.
I mean, this.
Well, if there isn't a transgender person on there, then I don't trust their judgment. I only heard men and women, and that has me kind of concerned. So,
well, yeah, he never said post-op or pre-op, so I'm pretty skeptical.
Yeah. No, I mean, but I want to hear the rest of what he says about the Federal Reserve before they comment. So,
delay. And here at the White House, and for my friends in Congress, the best thing to tackle high prices is a more productive economy.
So it's funny.
Hey, he's right when he says that.
He is,
in principle.
Right, in principle.
In practice,
but
yeah.
right. It's funny that they say that we have a separate Federal Reserve, right? It's a private bank. But then he said, I picked 5 people to go there.
Yeah, they're quasi-independent. They're not really private. They're
right. You scratch my back.
With greater capacity to deliver goods and services to the American people, and a growing economy where folks have more choices and more small businesses compete, and where more goods can get to market faster and cheaper. I've laid out a 3-part plan to do just that. First, fix the supply chain. COVID-19 has had a global impact on the economy.
Once again, not COVID-19. And to his credit, he's not wrong in really much that he said there, but in print or in action, it's a completely different story.
I mean, we don't have a strong economy. He was wrong about that. I mean,
Well, right.
When a factory shuts down in one part of the world, shipments to shops and homes and businesses all over the world are disrupted. COVID-19 has compounded that many times over. A couple of months ago, in this very room, we heard dire warnings about how the supply chain problems could create a real crisis around the holidays. So we acted. We brought together business and labor, and that much predicted crisis did not occur. 99% of the packages were delivered on time, and shelves were stocked. And notwithstanding the recent storms that have impacted many parts of our country, the share of goods in stock at stores is 89% now, which is.
So to correct him here, he's pretty close to right, but from the New York Post, as reliable as that is, I believe somewhere in here they said it was actually 88%, like they were 12% down. Okay, yeah. Grocery stores and other retailers face a 12% out of stock level on many household staples compared to 7-10% in regular times. So not entirely wrong, but
I mean, it doesn't ever. I've never seen anything like this though. So don't like
right.
normalize the unnormal. Like I've never seen. Went to the meat section. There's no meat.
Right.
I don't know. The freezer's empty. Like they can tell me it's 2% off, 3% off, but it's substantial to me. It's more than that. I don't know. I think you can hide stuff in numbers.
Well, that's a good point to bring up because the way that they get their inflation numbers is they completely butcher the CPI. All these numbers that the government will ever tell you are completely doctored up to make them look as favorable as possible. And the last, 10, 15 years, we've had higher than 1% to 2% inflation because the Federal Reserve says their target is 2% inflation per year, right? Well, the way that they're able to maintain that is because, once again, they doctor up the CPI. So instead of, let's say, if people prefer hamburgers and they can no longer afford hamburgers, then they're going to switch it over to chicken, right? They do these kind of bait and switch with the numbers all the time to make it look as favorable as possible. And not only that, it benefits, these politicians and people who like to spend copious amounts of money to make it look like inflation is lower than it is. So that way people don't notice their purchasing power being stolen out from underneath them.
Yep.
Barely changed from the 91% before the pandemic. I often see empty shelves being shown on television. 89% are full, which is only a few points below what it was before the pandemic. But our work's not done. My infrastructure law will supercharge your effort upgrading everything from roads and bridges to ports and airports, railways and transit to make the economy move faster and reduce prices for families.
So we kind of hit on that a little bit earlier. Once again, government jobs are a net drain on the economy because you're stealing money and productive labor from what would normally be in a free market, and then having the government do it less efficiently, and then putting more middlemen in the way of that productive labor. And it's probably going to be done less efficiently and with less quality when it's done by the government, and it's going to take a longer period of time. So the economy will not feel those effects until said jobs are done, which, once again, knowing the government, we live in Pennsylvania, Shane, just as well as I do, Route 28 is always under construction. It's a public highway. Reed?
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I think the infrastructure plan, like I might be wrong, but I think a very small portion is going towards roads and stuff like that. It's more geared towards this green ambition that he has, this Green New Deal and all that stuff. He wasn't able to get all the money he wanted, but that's still the target of his infrastructure plan.
Gender studies in Pakistan is infrastructure.
Yeah.
Second thing, my Build Back Better plan will address the biggest cost of working families face every day. No other plan will do more to lower the cost for American families. It cuts the cost for childcare. Many families, including the people sitting in this room, if they have children and they're working full time, many families pay up to $14,000 a year for childcare in big cities, less than that in smaller ones. My plan cuts that in half. That will not only be a game changer for so many families' budgets, but it will mean so much for the nearly 2 million women who've left the workforce during the pandemic because of things like childcare. My Build Back Better plan cuts the price of prescription drugs. So insulin, that today costs some people as much as $1,000 a month, will cost no more than $35 a month. It cuts the cost of elder care. It lowers energy cost. And it will do all of this without raising a single penny in taxes on people making under $400,000 a year or raising the deficit.
And that's where the bullshit really comes in. Once again, how does government get its money? Through taxes or through printing money at the Federal Reserve? How are you going to pay for a couple $1 trillion infrastructure plan without raising taxes or without going to the Federal Reserve?
I thought it cost $0. That's what they were telling us this last fall.
That's like you guys were saying earlier. That we've been gaslit into oblivion, and you know we're supposed to believe, oh yeah, this is just free money, as Milton Friedman used to say, money from helicopters, right? It's not free, dude. It's not free. We're feeling the inflation from the last 20 years, and we've yet to feel the inflation from 2020. And we've yet to feel the inflation that's going to be hitting us much, much harder from his administration.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Tough times ahead.
In fact, my plan cuts the deficit and it boosts the economy by getting more people into the workforce. That's why 17 Nobel Prize winners for economics say it will ease long-term inflationary pressure. The bottom line, if price increases are what you're worried about, the best answer is my Build Back Better plan. Third thing we're going to do, promote competition. Look, in too many industries, a handful of giant companies.
Real quick on this, it's funny that he brought up insulin. The problem with insulin is that it's essentially trademarked, right? Nobody can compete in producing insulin. Nobody ever talks about that. And I believe it was Trump who put out the executive order to lower the cost of it, which it's a Band-Aid on a snake bite, but the real cure there is, all right, we'll let the free market interact. And, you know, if companies can produce insulin better for cheaper, then people gravitate towards that. And if you can't, then, well, you're done. But, you know, there's no talk of that.
Has he already, I watched this before we went on the show. Did he already say he's a capitalist, but capitalism?
Oh, no, we're getting there. We're getting there.
But that's exactly what you're pointing out right there. Like,
right.
No problem. So later on, he says, you know, capitalism without competition is not capitalism. It's exploitation, which is a leftist talking point. What he should be saying is capitalism without competition is corporatism, because that's when the government is favoring a certain business. He phrases it as if the problem is that it's an unfettered market that has squashed competition somehow, where it's the complete opposite. It's because the government has protected the monopoly on medicine, like you're talking about. So, but that's coming up.
He actually rescinded. He rescinded Trump's executive order when he first came into office on insulin. So I mean,
right. And look, I would be okay with that if you're going to say, look, we're getting rid of this and we're going to allow companies to compete, right? But essentially, it's the government picking winners and losers. If you would have said, we're going to remove this executive order and then whoever makes insulin, cool. But that's not what they did.
No.
There's like meat processing, railroad shipping, and other areas. This isn't a new issue. It's not been the reason we've had high inflation today. It's not the only reason. It's been happening for a decade. But over time, it has reduced competition, squeezed out small businesses and farmers, ranchers, and increased the price for consumers. We end up with an industry like the meat processing industry, where 4 big companies dominate the markets. Pay ranchers less for their cattle they grow, charge consumers more for beef, hamburger meat, whatever they're buying. Prices are up. Look, I'm a capitalist, but capitalism without competition is not capitalism. It's exploitation. So I signed an executive order to tackle unfair competition in our economy, and we're going to continue to enforce it, along with working with Congress where we can. I'll close with this. We have faced some of the biggest challenges that we've ever faced in this country.
So that, I mean, that was obviously the clip I was talking about, which, I mean, I used to believe this, you know, even when, I mean, I think even most Republicans believe that, you know, an unfettered market is unfair and it's exploitive. I used to say that. But then when you actually research it, you find out that's not the case. There's only ever been one free market monopoly, the Alco Aluminum Company. I forget what, in the like early 1900s, I think. That was the only free market monopoly that ever existed. And when you think about it, why is a free market monopoly even a bad thing? Because that means that they're making the product the best quality for the lowest price and paying their employees the best and treating them the best and everything. Because if they weren't, if it were a free market, there'd be an opportunity for another company to step in and either treat their workers better or make better products or have lower prices. Like any of those things would force competition to another company. So this idea that the free market is exploitative is just complete bullshit. Like it's the government is what exploits the market.
Absolutely. Shane, you got anything to add, or do you want to kind of finish this out?
I mean, just like how he said where Congress can fix it where they can. Like he just gaslights us the whole time. It's sick, but that's all. I mean, keep it rolling.
Challenges to our public health, challenges to our economy, but we're getting through it. And not only are we getting through it, we're laying the foundation for a future where America wins the 21st century by creating jobs at a record pace. Now we need to get inflation under control. We have developed an extraordinarily effective booster shots and antiviral pills. Now we need to finish the job to get COVID-19 under control. I've long said it's never been a good bet to bet against the American people or America. I believe that more than ever today. We've seen the grit and determination of the American people this past year. But the best days of this country are still ahead of us, not behind us. Now I'm happy to take questions.
All right.
I'll just say, like, there's a lot of bullshit in that speech. Like, there's a lot of misinformation, but it was a pretty good talk for him. I was kind of impressed with how he got through it.
Yeah, no, it is pretty impressive that he didn't have any of the Bidenisms. There was a little bit of stuttering and spitting around.
It's more impressive watching it at 1 1/4 speed. He sounds a lot better than at actual speed.
He struggled really bad with the questions though. You can tell he was typical Biden. I mean, he does little gestures too. You can tell to move the screen and stuff like that. I mean,
he's good behind a teleprompter in certain situations, and that's about it. Like beyond that, he's kind of useless.
Yeah, I think that's probably a majority of what that was is, probably reading from the teleprompter, reading from the script. And like I said, you can hear the gaffes a little bit, the stuttering. It's bad, dude. It's bad, and it's coated with bullshit. But Reed, you pointed this out on Twitter, and you said the same, something to a similar degree about Trump, but the nice thing about Biden is that he so delegitimizes the authority from Washington. And especially after these last 2 years, where we've seen tin pot dictators, as Rand Paul would call them, enforcing lockdowns and these ridiculous laws upon their populace, people no longer tolerate it. And they do look more to a local level, to their communities, to their governors, to whoever for an answer rather than straight to Washington. And I really don't see a better way out of it than looking at a local level and working with people in your community to kind of make things better where you can, because we know Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, whoever, even Ron DeSantis, if he gets in there, Dave Smith, you name them, if they get in there, they will not be able to make our lives actively better. Only we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, my life has actually been better in 2021 than in 2020, just because of where I lived. I lived in Utah, and Utah didn't brook the same nonsense in 2021 that they had in 2020. I'm heavily considering moving back to New Hampshire, which is where I'm from, just because they are solidifying, a liberty value system there and trying to concentrate a bunch of people who believe in liberty and decentralize the state government, so it doesn't even matter who becomes governor. Towns can decide how they want to protect themselves. And the Free State Project, when I lived in New Hampshire, you heard about it, but nothing like it is now. And because of the ridiculous tyranny of the last year or 2 years now coming up on, it's exploded. Tons of people have moved there. It's become insanely popular. And I think, we can, without Trump and Biden, like Trump did a lot to delegitimize I'd say like the sacredness of the position, just because he was such a clown, which, anyone who respected that position started looking at it differently. But then he was like the perfect, precursor to Biden, who is, has just destroyed any semblance of honor or respect or integrity that that office ever had. So I am eternally thankful for Trump and Biden, for who they've turned me into. Because before Trump, I was a pretty like comparatively blue pilled libertarian, kind of moderate, we just, we need to follow the Constitution and enforce the system. And, we don't need to get rid of all these government departments. We just need good people running them or whatever. Like that was just kind of how I thought before Trump. And then, you had Trump and Biden now, and it's just completely changed who I am. It's completely changed who millions of people in this country are. And it's forced people to pay attention and think about what's going on in their communities. So thank you, Trump and Biden, especially Biden.
Shane, closing comments?
I mean, local action has national impact. This past 2 years have woken people up to see that politics do have a major influence on our life. We are supposed to be involved. We were never supposed to be asleep at the wheel like we were. We need to get involved. We need to be involved in every aspect of politics, whether it's the voting booth or the watching the voting or getting on committees and actually trying to influence from a local, because that local impact can go the whole way throughout a nation. What somebody does in a certain community can transcend to the nation. So I think it's just important that we get involved and we actually try to change things. We are supposed to be the government. It's supposed to be a self-government. We were letting politicians run this stuff for too long, and we need to take it back. We the people. So that's what I love about what's happening. There is everyday people getting involved, and that's what it was supposed to be. We're not supposed to have career politicians, and we found out what those really are in the past couple years. It's real easy to see now. It's real clear. It's once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I'm thankful for everything that's happened, even though it's been tough. It's made us better people, and it's made us a better country, I think, in the long run. Once we get it the power back.
Absolutely. And like we were all kind of saying, there's no other way to do it other than just kind of localism and becoming better shepherds of our community. I definitely feel that. I think all of us kind of, resemble that. Shane, you kind of came to presence when you defied the vaccine mandate, and I think you gave a lot of other people probably similar courage to do the same thing. And you showed to be a leader. Reed's been Reed on Twitter and definitely gets his message out there, and definitely has been a great voice for liberty as well. And being able to talk to people from all different ends of the spectrum, not just libertarians, not just right wingers, not just left wingers, all of them, and maybe pull them in a bit more of a liberty direction. But these last 2 years have really been awesome for me as well. Despite the lockdowns, everything like that, I'm in the best health of my life. Getting married this year, I could not be happier, and I think things are to continue to get better. And yeah, the political climate may suck, but we got to do everything we can to make it better. And if we can't really do anything, then well, we know the end of the empire is coming, and we'll all be around for after it. And we have tons of great minds to kind of move us forward. And it's great for me to be able to talk to those voices, and for those voices to be out there to be heard. You guys got anything else you want to kind of close on, or are you guys ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I'll just say tomorrow I've got, or I guess it'll be the same day this releases, I'll be having Kim Iverson on my show. She's one of like the only based left-wing people. I think she's the only left-winger who, although I think she's like losing her left-wingness. She's kind of like, I've seen some tweets where she's talking about how collectivism is, dangerous in a society and we need to embrace individualism. So it's going to be an interesting conversation, but she was the only left-winger in 2020 who had been against lockdowns from the very beginning. Some people like Jimmy Dore and Aaron Matei like started coming out against it this past year and started coming out against vaccine mandates like as they proved to not work or whatever, but she was against it on principle from day one. And we're going to be talking about how the left, even though like 20 years ago they were the ones for pushing for more tolerance and, being kind of against really authoritative legislation that was controlling people's lives. Now
And
they've
being
switched.
anti-war, yeah.
Yeah, they were. I don't actually think they were ever that great on the war stuff, but they were like pretty good on civil liberties and like letting people live how they want to. And now they're awful. And then on Saturday, I'll be having James Lindsay on my show. So pretty sweet weekend coming up. So make sure to check that out. I'm the Naturalist Capitalist on YouTube, Odyssey, and all the podcast feeds. And I'm at Reed_Coverdale on Twitter.
Unless he gets nuked. Shane,
Yeah.
what do you got to plug, Ben? Yeah.
I got a benefit for it's a luau party in Verona. If you're in local Pennsylvania, that's at the Hula Bar. Starts at 3:00. The money raised is going to go to help Allegheny County police like me that got fired because of the mandate. And then the next day, I'm rolling out at 5 in the morning, going to DC to march with the Defeat the Mandates. It's going to be huge. There's actually worldwide protests going on that day, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Peter McCullough. I mean, just the names go on. It's going to be great. It's the march goes from Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial, and I hope to see, somewhere around 50,000 to 100,000 people there. I know they have something like that in mind, so it should be pretty cool.
Hey, if someone tells you they want to storm the White House, they're a Fed. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, look for the name tag Ray.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. So
yeah, check the FBI's most wanted, or the CIA or FBI's most wanted list, and kind of see the names there. And if any of those names disappear and they introduce themselves to you,
stay away.
Nah, bro. All right, well, Shane, I will see you Saturday. Reed, we'll have to do it again sometime. And until next time, everybody, take care. And this was In Liberty and Health.
All right, see you guys.